All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Serious Angler Podcast, powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. Back with the captain and half of his hand, Mr. Andy Full.
No bandage on today. We're doing good. You can kind of see it there, but
No bandage, but it's no worky.
No worky. It hurties when it workies.
Yeah, something like that. And as always, folks, I'm your host, Bailey Egbert. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I have a great couple days off. Hopefully you had the Friday off too after Thanksgiving and got a nice 4-day weekend. Like I've seen many folks did and got out, either fished or hunted or spent some good time with family. But nonetheless, was a nice couple days off. Andy, how's your Thanksgiving, man?
Oh, it was good. Ate way too much food, felt full for about 4 days, and got to celebrate the holiday with a bunch of awesome family members. So we went to the in-laws for Thanksgiving, went there on Wednesday. On Thursday, we ate, I think we talked about this last night. We had like 4 turkeys, like 2 different sweet potato bakes, like 5 different dessert options. There was like 40 people. It was incredible. And Michael Bradley, yes, we are still shoveling snow. I've snowblowed 3 times and shoveled twice. So we're doing good.
Which is crazy because, I mean, as the crow
you
flies,
have grass where you live.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, I have snow, but now I can see green. Where, like, you literally go maybe as the crow flies 10 minutes, and I'm at Andy's house, and it's completely different.
Yeah, we have just under a foot, I would say. That's compacted down to like 5 inches. But last night when I went to bed, we had about a foot. So, yeah, it's not bad.
Buffalo needs to have there needs to be like a documentary on the freaking weather in Buffalo, because it's like an anomaly, man. Because it's just one small string every year that follows the same path.
Yeah.
It's like it hovers above the Bill Stadium, and that's all it is.
Yeah, like yesterday, they weren't even forecasting really the snow to sit over Hamburg. And sure enough, at like 2:00, I'm like, it's not supposed to snow here till Wednesday morning, and I can't see the house across the street. Like, great. And then they're like, oh, the band's going to move south. It'll be here briefly. And then 7 hours later, it was still sitting over my house. Like, just relentless. So
yeah,
it was,
we got a little bit of the outskirts of it. I went out. I was telling you this. People that follow me on social saw it. Like, I went out to get a package, and it was cold out. Wasn't that windy. And I come back inside. I went back out because we had I had mail come later, literally 30 minutes later. Went out, and it's blowing 40 miles an hour, and we already have a couple inches of snow on the ground. I'm like, the time, like 30 minutes later. But,
it's wild. Like, and those who don't understand what like lake effect snow is, it's literally an intense squall line. And if you can think of it as more like a straight line thunderstorm, but it chains off of the lake and just constantly rebuilds and refunnels. So it'll kind of like die down when the wind shift a certain way, and it'll sag south or move north. And you can see, like, as the wind gusts pick up, you can see how the snow intensifies if you watch it on the radar, and how it like comes through like in microbursts. And then yesterday we had the fun thunder snow. So we had about 40 cracks of thunder and a dozen lightning strikes all in my neighborhood. So that was fun.
Yeah. Speaking of something weird, I feel like this is that Spider-Man meme where you're like pointing at each other. Like, wait, you're me. We have Lure Lab in the comments. Not the Lure Lab. We just have somebody with the name of Lure Lab. Well, hello, Lure Lab. Welcome.
Hello, Lure Lab. Yes.
Everyone is welcome here.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah. Are you the Lure Lab? Because I am the Lure Lab.
Dude, it's totally that Spider-Man meme. We're all just like, wait, I am you and you are me.
That's good. Welcome. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, dude, quick shout out to the folks over at the Tackle and Taco podcast that were on last night. I don't know what they were thinking, getting you, Deacon, and I on the same show at the same time, but nonetheless, it was a blast with them. I encourage you guys to go check that out. It was a pretty fun episode. It's up on same things you guys will listen to any of the Serious Angler Network shows, just Apple or Spotify. Look up Tackle and Taco. Good people, good time.
You know, the best part about was the fact of how laid back it was. It was like we've known them for like 20 years. Like we just met them, and it was like we knew them for 20 years. It was fluid conversation, great topics, and we talked some food and fishing. It was awesome.
Well, Andy mostly talked food, but yeah.
Don't get this way for no reason, all right? Like,
right. That's right. And so here's something for the folks too, for people that are avids of the show, whether they're watching live or that listen to the MP3, they've noticed in the past few shows, I've had severe issues with connection, like random spurts. I'll just be gone for 10 seconds. You can't hear me. I lock up. So finally got a hold of Spectrum to come over to the house today. They go and they run through everything. Like, man, your equipment's great. Like everything's perfect. It's running awesome. But like, we do see what you're talking about. There is an issue. And they couldn't figure it out till the very end. They realized it's their equipment, not at the house. It's in the area that I'm at. And so them coming over the appointment to look at our equipment at our house was the reason they figured out they have an issue in their equipment on like one of the telephone poles or whatever the thing they use. They call it
was that a node or something?
Yeah, like a node. I can't remember the specific. I think it's what it was, but nonetheless, they're out trying to fix it either today or tomorrow. So hopefully we don't have that issue going forward anymore. And I was sitting there trying to figure out solutions. I have a 100-foot Ethernet cord running all the way up to my router and everything, trying to avoid those small little glitches. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, guys. We're almost there. Yeah. As much as I talked crap about Spectrum in the past episodes, the guy that came over was super helpful, cool dude. So thank you. And he saw my fishing tackle room, and he's now going to be a listener of the Serious Angler podcast.
Oh man, that's awesome. I can't tell you like how many service people I've had come over and like, oh man, I love fishing.
Yeah.
Like little do you know.
Yeah. He says he wants to get into steelhead fishing. He doesn't know where to go. And I'm like, oh, I got the guy for you.
Yes, I will take him steelhead fishing for.
I'm just your full-time advertisement, Andy.
Hey, I appreciate it. And I let you borrow my boat. Like, That's
right. I'll take that as payment anytime. Oh, that's awesome. Well, real fast, we have an awesome show. A guest that is quite frequent on Serious Angler today with Mr. Keith Carson joining us. But really fast for folks, mark your calendars because we are planning. Obviously, it's only November 28th now, so you got some time. But December 20th, we are going to have that week. We're not going to do two shows. We're going to have one show on Wednesday night, that 20th, and it's going to be our Christmas special. We'll have it a little quote unquote not so serious, if you will. We'll be laid back. Well, obviously have some fishing talk, but we'll have 8 p.m. Yep, same time as always, and just have some fun. Invite a bunch of our friends of the show and have a good time. So folks that have been around for a while that know what those shows are like, it's going down on the 20th.
Ruckus. Can be
have some fun. Yeah. But nonetheless, Andy, I think we get on our guest for today, Mr. Keith Carson. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good, man.
Buddy.
Is it warm down there?
No, actually, it's not. Today, the high was 57 and the low was 41. So I'm like freezing.
Are you in like a parka and like 3 pairs of sweatpants and wool socks?
Yeah. I got all that. And then I put my rain suit on as a windbreaker too. So,
you're bundled.
So, yeah.
So to give you an idea, Keith, what it's like up here in the north, I literally snowblowed earlier with no gloves on, sneakers, jeans, and a hoodie. And it's like, it feels like a real feel of 5 outside, and it was snowing.
I'm surprised you weren't out fishing.
I actually went to look at the creek, but it was a little frozen.
A little frozen, yeah. One time I was fishing a tournament on Lake Wheeler. This is south. I mean, it's out northern Alabama, and the tournament for whatever reason was in late November, and they had a terrible cold front. It was 7 degrees with a high of 20 for a few days in a row, and the creek that I had all my fish in, I actually had to chip through the ice with the boat to get to them. And it's funny, I pulled up with my co-angler and I bombed a cast on top of the ice and I reeled my bait across ice the entire way. It never even touched water. And I got back to the boat. So I would chip through the ice and break a trail and turn around and fish my trail. And I caught the crap out of them. Yeah.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy. Like the people talk about the like fishing the ice like you would a grass line this time of year. It's like a legit thing now, and also springtime. It's crazy.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm curious about, from your opinion, it's funny that you're talking about that bite as the Floridian of the three of us here. But do you think that's just like acting like any other canopy or mat, if you will? It's just they sit on it like a break.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And anytime there's something that's like that creates an edge like that, whether it's a hyacinth mat in Florida or a ice line and up north there on Lake Erie, it's the same thing. It's some kind of edge, and it breaks the water surface. So if you got a windy day and it's choppy, you're gonna have this ice line where you got wind and chop over here, and then it's just straight ice, beyond that line. And so it just creates a barrier where fish can get on the edge of something and know that they understand their surroundings better when they're on a line of something, just same as us. If you if you're human, you got your back against the wall, well then you only have to look at your three other sides, the walls behind you, and it's just like that.
So intriguing. Have you ever gotten on a bite like that, Andy?
So I've been on a bite where we've had to break the ice in the harbor to get out into the lake, but there was no ice around. Unfortunately, usually like once our lakes get ice on them, they all freeze at one time, it seems like. So like, because we don't have any like natural creek mouths that dump in, everything is a natural lake. It's mostly round, and the creeks that flow in are dumping into it with like gravel banks on the mouth of the streams and stuff. So, I mean, no. The short answer is no.
Yeah. I've gotten it a couple times up here, but one thing you guys aren't going to Chickamauga next year, right?
No.
Okay, so I can talk about Chick. Caleb Bell, who we had on last week for our Thanksgiving special, he showed me video as proof of this, but has talked about it. They have on Chick, there's times, years where it'll freeze in the backs of creeks, and there'll be a creek bend, and he will take an A-rig and throw it on top of the ice and drag it right off. So all it does is just fall, and they'll eat it on the fall. And he's like, that's a bite that we get on. I'm like, that's just dumb. Dude.
I wonder if the A-rig is ever frozen to the ice, like cast up on top and stuck, and you're like, what do I do now?
I believe it. Probably snag on some ice.
Yeah, during that tournament I was talking about, it was so cold that I would make a cast. So I'd break the ice, and the ice was thin, it was only like a half an inch or so. And I'd break the ice and I'd fish my trail. Well, I was throwing a jerk bait. So I'd fire the jerk bait out, and if I let it sit too long, I'd go to reel, and I had nothing. I couldn't even turn the reel. So I dip my rod in the water all the way up to the reel and pull my rod out, and I'd beat the ice off the side of the boat because all the guides were frozen, and then I could start reeling and twitching again. And I did that every single cast all day, and I caught like 19 pounds, and it was pretty.
That's a lot of work for a couple bass.
Yeah, it really was. And it was so funny. My live wells were frozen shut, so I went to go through boat check, and I'm idling by, and I'm like, guys, I was like, it's frozen shut, and she's like, you ain't the first one. It's okay. Just go ahead. So I get out there and I catch a bass, and it's like first thing in the morning, I catch one. It's freezing. I can't open my live well. So I take a pair of needle nose pliers, and I just stab the perimeter of one of the lids on my ice out, and then finally got it open, pumped some water in there and stuff. It was unreal. I was like, this is an experience now,
Oh, yeah.
Good grief.
When I used to leave my boat outside, and I would take it to put it in the way in the winter, and it'd sit out there in like a snowstorm or two, and then just the condensation from the humidity, even though it's cold out, would get in like the carpet cracks, and you go to try to open the lids, you're like, son of a gun. So I'm sitting out there like pouring hot water on them in 20-degree water to get them open so I can take my batteries out. I'm just like, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to keep them open for all winter, because if you shut them, they'll be frozen solid all winter, and they expand, and that's just as well. Yeah, because then you could have some fiberglass issues.
See, we just got a cold front here a couple days ago, so my screen door on my house, I got like a little latch lock on it, and all summer I can barely get the latch to go in the hole. I gotta like pick the door up and get the latch in there. Suddenly it gets cold and it latches just fine. And I'm like,
must have installed the door when it was cold out.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think I did. I think I built it last January and put it on.
Yep.
Yeah. So all winter it works.
Metal
great.
expands and contracts. They all do.
That's funny. Well, dude, it's been a minute since we chatted with you, and it's, you know, you're in the heat of getting ready for everything next year, and you had quite the whirlwind of a fall, I would say, you know, being a rookie on the Bass Pro Tour. But what have you been up to, man?
Man, you know, I just finished Lake Lanier, finished up the NPFL season there, and I've really been diving into the whole forward-facing sonar thing more. And the guys using it are just dominating, kicking everybody's butt. And so, you know, going into that tournament, I thought I'm going to use it, and whatever happens, happens. If I get a check, great. If not, that's fine. I'm going to learn something. Because, you know, one of the things about competition is you can fish a particular strategy in practice or for fun, whatever it may be, whether it's spinnerbait or jig or whatever, or forward facing sonar. But to implement that into a tournament is a whole nother ball game, and to make those decisions quickly under the clock and stuff. And I thought, I'm just going to do it and we'll see what happens. And man, it turned out great. You know, I ended up in 6th place. I got a top 10, and my weights got better every day as I learned how to use forward facing sonar. And I was learning under pressure, which teaches you better than it does in a non-competition mode. And my weights got better. So now I'm like, man, you know, I think, I think I can, you know, like, I think I can actually hang with some of those guys that are really good at it. And, you know, so I'm like getting the boat set up. Yeah. So I got a new boat coming next year. I'm going to run a Vexus. I'm going to switch from Crest. I'm excited. They're great.
Aluminum or glass?
Aluminum. I'm still going to stay aluminum. I like that shallow draft. You know, I always got to keep that option open. You know, I'm a shallow water guy. But you know, I'm going to implement some of this forward facing sonar, you know, and see where it takes me.
So you got what, the 2180? Is it the AVX 2180?
It's
a big one.
Yeah, it's a 2080, but yeah, yep. And it takes a 200, and man, this thing runs. It is a fast boat. It really is. I'm impressed.
That's cool. Congrats on the new boat.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited. You know, it's yeah, I like that it's a 200, so it'll save a little gas and stuff. You know, and still run really good. But you know, I'm just ready to get it and get everything rigged and just start practicing. You know, and get ready for next year.
Heck yeah, man. Backtracking really fast. I mean, you mentioned that your weights were getting better each day.
Right.
Do you think it was you were becoming more efficient with what you were doing, or you were just finding fish, like running new water? What do you think the variable was there?
Okay, so I found fish, and I fished one spot the entire tournament. It was a creek, like a deep creek channel. It was anywhere from, say, 50 to 90 feet deep. I never fished shallower than 50 feet, and I only targeted suspended fish. And the reason that my weights went up was because I really didn't know what to throw. To be honest, I didn't know exactly what to use with forward facing sonar. There's an array of baits you can use, you know, from, you know, whatever it may be. And I started off, I was throwing swim baits, and I was throwing coal shad. And so the Berkeley coal shad, this thing, it gets a tremendous amount of bites. It's really good. But with the spots having a little smaller mouth, my hookup ratio was fair. Yeah. So I kept moving through baits, and I ended up switching to the Berkeley flat nose minnow and just freaking catching them on that last day. And, you know, had I known, you know, this is one of those things, like, you know, now I know, but had I known, I think I really could have caught him, you know, and I don't think I could have won. Patrick Walters won that tournament. He blew it away, but I think I could have done better than 6th. But it's just, you know, I'm just learning it in real time in a tournament scenario. And you got to make those decisions quickly, you know, and that's one of my big things with fishing is having the mindset of switching to something that you're like, it's like it's like almost stepping into the unknown. Like you're not sure what's going to happen, but something may happen if you make that switch, and doing it in a tournament scenario. And man, it worked out. So I'm like, oh yeah, I think I can do this. Yeah.
I think it's honestly, when you get more time with that and you can figure out how to morph that style that you're learning, but also what Keith Carson is at his core of that shallow game.
Right.
I think when you can make that into a true hybrid, pending, lake and time of year, I think you're going to be pretty damn scary, more scary than you are already, because you'll be able to like get a feel of both, but also be able to leave it and go do something shallow proficiently, where some guys might be just hunkered down stubborn. They won't leave that offshore.
Right. And, it's funny you say that, because I've had you could say a little bit of trepidation towards forward sonar, or, I'm a little bit reserved towards going all in. And it's not because I don't like it or anything. I think the technology is excellent. I think it's fascinating. But so some of the guys that use it, as I talk to them at the ramp, for example, if there's a guy who, say, his graph goes out or he loses power. This happened at Lake Lanier, for example. And I was talking to a guy who just uses forward sonar, and he lost his unit. And he's like, Keith, I didn't know how to fish. He's like, I honestly didn't know where to cast without it. And I'm like, really? Like, you couldn't just go hit the bank? He's like, dude, I can't do it. I can't fish without it. And so that has been part of my trepidation, where if I go all in on forward facing sonar, which I know I could do, I'm very interested in it. If I get too deep into it, would it be hard for me to go shallow again? And exactly how to navigate that can be slightly difficult, in a tournament scenario. And so I've been slowly, you could say, or cautiously, stepping into it and branching into it more and more. But like I said, with a little bit of caution, I don't want to go all in 100%. And then where, something happens where, I don't know, say the fishing game bans it, where they're like, hey, y'all are catching too many fish. We're going to ban it like we did the Alabama rig. And then I'm like, oh no, what do I do?
Yeah, I think the guys that are really good with it right now that you see do well regardless of the lake is guys that are like, I'm going to get proficient with it, but I'm also going to turn it off and go keep my instincts on par. Where it's, I've seen a couple guys talk about that, where there's days I'll go out and I'm in the kayak, granted, and I'm using it. And there's days where I leave it at home and I'm like, let's go get back into, keep everything on cue. You know what I mean? Like keep everything sharp. And I think from your style of things, that's going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the right way to look at it, to use it and then also not use it, and just go fish, and keep your instincts as sharp as you can. Yeah.
I agree completely. Like a little side note story here, like on guide trips, sometimes I'll turn it off when I'm on the bow and try to fish with my 2D, like old time sakes, when I'm fishing vertically up and down. And I'm like, oh, this is so much fun trying to catch them on 2D every once in a while. Because you got to figure out like what side they are on the cone, like where to drop your bait without spinning your trolling motor around. It is a whole new puzzling game. And I think a lot of people have gotten away from that point of being able to trust their instincts and figure out what they're reading without forward facing. Like this is my first full year this last year with it. And I learned so much with it, but I still like to catch them without it as well.
Yeah.
And then my neck hurts when I look down all the time.
Oh, so. Yeah. I know. And we're all going to be hunchbacks in a few years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. So I've had a lot of fun this fall. I usually throughout the year, I run a Hobie Pro Angler, which is like a barge for a kayak. So you could put whatever you want on it. And I went to Morgan Marine, the dealer I work with, and I picked up what they have is called a Hobie iTrek, which is a simple inflatable kayak that you can pedal. And so there's no like mounting, nothing. And all it lasts like 4 or 5 trips. All I've taken with me is a spinnerbait and a jig. And I've had so much fun this fall. Just not forgetting about it. Like saying, there's probably fish out there. Yeah. There's probably a school of crappie I can go catch and have great dinner, but screw that. I'm going to go down this whole timber line that's on the bank and have some fun.
Yeah. Just have fun casting. And, and there's also like a little bit of element of fun in like when you're fishing shallow, making that precise cast where you got like a 6 inch by 6 inch or 1 foot by 1 foot window to bait. And if you don't, you're going to get hung up really bad. And even if you don't get a bite, it's still fun. It's like, I hit my cast, I hit my mark, and part of that feels good too. And so, I like that, which, hey, I actually do that with forward sonar. I practice my distances to the foot up to 80 feet. And so like I've gotten to where I can hit my number within a 3 foot range almost 100% of the time. And that's nice. So like I'll see a fish, say it's 10 feet deep, but 61 feet out, I'll hit it from 60 to 62 feet, like almost every time. And so like that feels good. I'm like, oh, it's right on them. You'll see them spit on it, and they don't always bite, but still, at least you presented the bait as best as you could.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The mechanical side of things, like I've been out with, whether it's Andy or a buddy Forrest, mine, I fish with a bunch, and like I'm like, we might not be catching anything, but like skipping this jig under trees and stuff, it's certainly a satisfying way to fish because it's just it's just like aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. But
flipping grass, burning a chatterbait, like I think that's one of the reasons why I've become more of like a largemouth fishing fan the past like couple months this past year, because I'm like so tired of looking down. I'm like, I just want to,
because you're sitting there with a spinner rod just holding it.
Yeah, like I'm like, I want to go like pick up a 7 foot heavy flipping stick with some braid and go to war. Like I'm tired of this.
Yeah, I hear that.
Florida, you get it all year long.
Yeah, please. I mean, we can do it all year long here too, just depending on what lake we're on. So
that's true. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get to some more winter shallow water fishing here in a little bit, but I'm kind of curious from your standpoint. A lot of changes have come the way towards Major League Fishing and Bass Pro Tour, things for this year, things for next year.
Right.
And I got to say, out of it, what is your mindset at? Where are you standing? Like when you look forward to 2024, being that as a rookie, the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, so for maybe for the listeners who don't know, so I just qualified for the Bass Pro Tour as a rookie, and going into it, so they've had a set of rule changes. I guess I'll explain, they've had a set of rule changes, and they're going to cut to the top 50. So there's 80 guys in the Bass Pro Tour. They're cutting the top 50 next year. 35 guys are going to end up getting cut because they're bringing 5 in from the Invitational. So 35 BPT guys will be cut. And so prior to that happening, I was like, man, this is great. All I got to do is not be in the bottom 8, like basically a top 72, and I'm solid, and I feel real confident, very confident that I could do that. And then suddenly things changed to where, based on the rules, basically I have to make a top 10 in points after the 35 lifetime angler of the year Bass Pro Tour guys. So the top 35 angler of the year, they're in, and I don't have a lifetime standing for the AOY since I'm a rookie. So basically I have to make a top 10, and that's certainly doable. It's not out of the realm for me to make top 10 or maybe even top 10 in points overall. But to say that I'm confident that it can happen, I wouldn't say that. I'm going from, all my life I've fished your best 5. You catch 5 big ones each day, going from that to every fish counts. And so, gosh, I don't know, how's that going to play, and this is another thing where I'm going to have to learn this on the fly. In the first tournament of the year will be my first tournament ever of every fish counts. How do I navigate it? What's the best route? Do I target 2-pounders and try to catch 20 of them, or do I just fish how I normally fish, catch 5 or 6 fish, and they're better fish? And so, like, a lot of those thoughts are going through my head, and I've talked to some of the guys who fish Bass Pro Tour for years. And so some of the old guys have been there since the very, very beginning, and most everyone said, just fish the way that you fish and you'll be just fine. Don't even worry about it. So I think I'm going to start off, fishing that way, and, adapt if I need to. But I wouldn't say I'm nervous about it. I'm not nervous. But it's a little bit up in the air. It's definitely, it's hard to say exactly, what's going to happen, how I'll finish in the points and things like that. So it definitely threw a wrench in my gears. You spend years trying to qualify, and then you qualify, and then they're like, oh, nah, one more time, you got to qualify again. Better get a top 10. So I got to catch them next year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess too, for people that might be wondering, like, that is a drop down, like in regards to like the top 35. If they're in the top 10, they're already good for 2025. It'll drop down to say 11, 12, however. So
correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I think, well, see, I've been throwing the scenario around in my head. I've been going through numbers, and there's so many variables. It's difficult to say where I should be, and so, I would like to think, let's say I got a top 35 in points overall standings. I would like to think that would be good enough to secure me to fish for 2025. But it's hard to say, because if there's 10 guys that aren't in the top 35 AOI ahead of me, even though I get 35th in points, I'm out. Those guys will beat me as long as they're not in the top 35 lifetime AOI standing. So there's a lot of variables going on. It's hard to say, so I'm just going to hope I can get like a top 20 in points. I think I'd feel really solid. If I get 20th or something, and don't make it, then whatever. But that's just kind of my roundabout goal. And as I go through the year, my goals change. Each tournament, my goals change. But before the year starts, it's kind of what I'm hopefully shooting for, something around there.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting at the start of the BPT when the split first happened, and it was like every guy was on the same playing field in regards to learning the every number counts game. And it definitely seemed like some guys picked up on it really easy because they already were somebody that naturally fishes for numbers, or like a great example of somebody that I think took a while to adjust and was really jiving with the new style just in time for it to switch back to 5 fish was like Justin Lucas. And he talked about that. Like, if you follow him on his YouTube channel, like he says, he's like, I feel like I'm finally starting to feel this, like, get with this format. And it was like after the first season, like the second season he was doing it. And so there's like, to your point, it might be a long adjustment. It might be something that you don't have to change anything up, but that'll be interesting to see like how that goes for you. I think you're going into it with the right mindset of, I'm just going to be me and not try to morph myself into something I'm not. Because I might just steer you down a whole different path that might be hard to come back from.
Right. That's exactly right. And a lot of times if you try to be something you're not, maybe it works, but if it doesn't, the failure is going to be terrible. It's going to be something that you can't come back from. And so I think if I just do what I do and fish the way that I fish, the cards will fall where they fall, and hopefully I'll be, where I need to be by the end of the year. But hey, I like the schedule. It's looking good. It fits me well. So, I think I'll even be able to sight fish at some of them. I'm cool with that. So
gotta catch them a little quicker.
What's that?
I'd say you just have to catch them a little quicker now.
Right.
All the added pressure of hearing what other people are doing, I don't know how I personally would deal with something like that. Like,
I was wondering, like, can I silence my marshal? Can I say, like, just let me
I need 30 minutes to catch this 8-pounder on a bed. Just don't tell me. And as soon as I get in the boat, you can unload on me what everyone else caught, because at that point it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like a cell phone. You can just mute notifications.
Mute.
Hey, if he doesn't, just bring what I'm wearing right now, just over the here.
That's a good
noise canceling headphones, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I might do that.
That would be a funny clip, actually. That'd be good TV right there. We have some good advice from Scott here in the comments, and he says, "Just win."
A good one.
Yeah, I know. That's
super easy.
Every event, win. Yeah, sweep it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I think you got a good outlook on it, and I think regardless of top 10 or not, you'll be at that level regardless of how the year shakes out.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm just it's hard to say. It's a new season, new format. It's not like going into a new league that's still 5 fish limit. So it's little scary, but it's okay. Just do what I do and see what happens.
Yeah, being scared's a good thing every now and then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Or something like that. I heard some cliche line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds you that you're alive.
Yeah, something like that. I can get down with that. Obviously, we're always rooting for you, buddy. But this time of year, getting back to some shallow water, winter or cold water fishing. What does Florida fish like this time of year? Because obviously everybody, when we talk about Florida, there's multiple spawns per year, things like that. Where are you guys in the cycle right
now? So they are pre-spawn right now, but since we got this cold front, they will be spawning very soon. Our fish, they'll spawn quickly. So say we get a cold front and then 2 days later it's 80 degrees, they'll be spawning in 2 days, just like that. And then if we get a cold front, they're off the beds and then it's 80 degrees and then they're spawning again, just like that. And now, it's crazy.
This time of year, does the moon phase matter at all? Like, because it's not even December yet, or is it just cold snap, water warms by 5 degrees and they go?
Yeah. So I don't think the moon phase, as far as Florida goes, I don't really think the moon phase affects them that much. It's more water temperature, and a warming trend and all that they need in order to spawn. But they're not spawning now, but they might be spawning by Saturday down here. So, yeah, it's gonna be.
I vividly remember you. We had a spawn show talking about that. How you're like anti-moon. You're like, screw the moon. You don't need it.
Yeah. I forgot. Okay, sorry.
I don't know. It's just throughout my life, what I've seen in Florida. Florida's totally different than any other state where they spawn. We're like a whole nother animal. And as far as Florida goes, the moon just hasn't changed it a whole lot. And it changed the spawn so little that I actually started not even looking at the moon. I was just paying attention to water temperature. And then next thing you know, I'd go up shallow and sight fish and I'd see tons of big fish and catch 30 pounds. And then I would go home and look at the moon. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like there's like no moon hardly, like there was no moon 3 days ago. And I caught 30 pounds off the beds today. So then I started thinking, well, geez, what is it? And as far as Florida goes, it just doesn't seem to affect them as much. The moon does affect brim spawning. Big deal. Bass, I don't know. It's hard. I'm still learning on that one.
I think that's something we need to jot down on our ever ongoing list, Andy, for
Steve Barden.
Yeah. I mean, Keith, Steve Barden, the fisheries biologist over at Major League Fishing.
I don't think I've actually talked to him.
Oh, we got to get you in touch, man, because I'm sure you would bombard him with some questions, but how moon phase works, like, is it a per region if it's more emphasized or something like that? That could be a pretty cool question for Steve.
That's a great.
We get Steve on a bunch. We always bombarded with different questions that we have, but that's pretty cool to think about, though. Like, if it works different here in the Northeast than it does in Florida, because we have deeper, clear water. Like, can that be a factor type of deal? I think that could be pretty interesting.
That's a good point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's a good point. It could have to do with water clarity, like the moon. Clear water, the moon would surely affect it. And dirty water, it's still provides light, but it's not as it's not going to penetrate as deeply. So maybe they don't notice it as much. Yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah. So we were talking about a little bit at the beginning, like you were talking about how you would pave a path through the ice and then cast back down just to catch some of these fish that were sitting under the ice. This time of year, when it comes to a shallow bite, I feel like there are some there's like almost like a mental block for people that get really cold temperatures this time of year that still have somewhat open water. They think that because they either still throw the same baits or they're still fishing the same way, that the fish aren't shallow anymore. they move deeper, and some certainly do. But in your opinion, do fish stay shallow year round? And if so, how do you access those fish when the water temperatures get frigid?
Oh man, I mean, they're certainly shallow year round. And if you think that they're not, when the ice is frozen, they are. They're very shallow. And in that particular tournament that I was talking about, so I would cross a sandbar that was like maybe 10 inches deep. It was super, super shallow. And then it would drop off to like 3 feet or 4 feet. And the fish were absolutely piled in there in this tiny ditch that's a few feet deep. And I think to myself, why don't these fish just swim out to the channel 500 yards and there's plenty of water? And they just don't. I don't know why exactly. They like those little shallow ditches where it goes from 1 feet to 2.5, 1 to 3, 1 to 2 sometimes. It's just, it really blows my mind. To this day, I've caught tremendous amount of fish in very little water. And it's the same feeling every time I find fish where it goes from, 10 inches to 18 inches and there's a pile of fish. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, it literally blows my mind, because I think I'm looking for something that's not there, and it's there. I just have to look harder. And all year round, they're there. Even under frozen ice, there's piles of fish up shallow. And you can see them too. Like I would say, I don't know, maybe 70 to 80% of the fish that I catch shallow, like I visibly see them before I cast to them. So that's part of
Are you up on them, or are you like a distance away to access them?
Sometimes both. Usually a distance away, but sometimes I'm like, I've had fish where I see them 10 feet in front of my trolling motor, and I'll pitch in their face and they'll eat it, and I'll catch it. And that's a lot. And sometimes they don't eat it. But even when they're not spawning, I still like to visibly sight fish, and you could still catch a lot of big fish that way, visibly, where you're like stealth like. And that's part of why I really enjoy the aluminum boat. It drafts shallow. It's more stealthy. You can really sneak up on the bass. And I mean, this from, fishing kayaks, you could sneak up on them better than I can. But it just makes you feel like you have that edge. And then when you see one swimming, you fire the perfect cast right in front of them and they eat it. It's like, okay, that's why I do this,
Dude, there's something about that. I think it was you that I was talking about in the show, but there's something that's so much fun about like stalking shallow bass that you can see. Like it's almost like you're hunting.
Yeah.
Like you're at the spot and stalk. And there's something so cool about that. Like when you start factoring in like angles of where the sun is shining down on you so that you're not casting a shadow, and like even to the point where you're trying to like hide behind docks and things like that so they can't see you visibly above the water. Dude, something about that is so like primal and cool to me.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I fish. And it is. And it's like you're hunting and you're trying to catch the fish, but you're also disguising the boat. You're blending in with, like you say, a dock or a lay down or something. And that's like one of the big keys to catch shallow fishing is blending in and getting the fish to where they don't even know that your boat is there. And the better that you are at boat control, the more fish that you catch. And that's 100% a fact. It more so comes down to being better at controlling my boat than actually how good am I at casting or presenting a bait and things like that. If you're in a situation where it's like, say you're on the bank fishing and the fish doesn't know you're there, there's times that you don't even necessarily have to make a good cast. Like you just get the bait out there and they'll swim from 10, 20 feet and just book it right to the bait and eat it. And, and when that happens, that's when, you're doing your job at hiding your boat properly and stuff, to get them to bite. And that is, to me, that's like why I fish, it's so,
Dude, there's something so thrilling about that. It's almost like when you've been throwing Nessie lately. It's like when you can see them going behind you like a little kid, like you're just giggling the whole time when you can see everything happening and like, oh, it's coming over to it. And you're like, there's something.
Dude, the Nessie's unreal. I started throwing that day 3 at Lake Lanier, and they were just crushing it. I mean, I couldn't believe it, you know, and I would throw it out there and I put it on a real light line. The lighter line, you put it on, the better it swims. And, you know, out there in deep water, you know, you don't need big line. And man, I would throw it out there and I'd reel it as fast as I could possibly reel it. And I would watch the sonar, and they would come up from 20 feet, 25 feet, and just like a rocket, and they'd hit that thing, you know. Sometimes it would be like 10 of them. And yeah, it was unreal. And I caught,
you gotta be talking about spots.
Spotted bass. I'm like yeah. And I was like, man, that thing blew my mind. Yeah, how good they ate that thing.
Well, on our trip at Oneida, I mean, you could see the smallies would do the same thing to it. It was super cool. The first day on that trip, I had the 9-inch, and Cole Breeden, I was in the boat with him, and he had the 7, and it was crazy. I'd wake the 9, like you're talking about, like chopping it super fast, and something would a smallmouth would come up and blow 5 feet out of the water. He'd pitch the 7 in there, and they would inhale the 7.
Yeah,
it's crazy, the drawing power at these, you know, bigger glide baits, and obviously in this case you're talking about the Nessie that they have.
yeah.
It's
Well, so at Lake Lanier, I started off throwing, and I'm thinking, how am I going to catch these spots? You know, they're like smallmouth, they got a smaller mouth and stuff. And I thought, let's just see what happens. In the tournament, I just start throwing it, you know, like, let's see. So I'm sending it out there, 9-inch Nessie, and I'm reeling it as fast as I can. First cast, I got like 7 fish coming up for it. And now I'm getting closer to the trolling motor. And I'm like, oh man, I'm running out of space, you know. I get 5 feet from my trolling motor and I just stop it, and it sits there. And there's all these fish around it, and they're looking at it, and the bait's not moving. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. They're 5 feet from it. Do I reel it, switch it? And they're moving closer to it as the bait's just sitting there. And when about 3.5, he goes up to it and he eats it and swallows it nose first. I didn't even move the bait, and he swims down. It's like a worm bite. It was like throwing a general out there. And he eats it and he swims down, and I set the hook and I caught him. 3.5 pounder.
That's freaking awesome. And you saw it like with your eyes?
I saw him on the sonar, and then I'm watching him come up from 20 feet, 20, 15, 10. And I'm reeling the bait closer to me, and I'm like, oh no, I'm running out of space. And I stopped it.
And they just kept coming like a pack of dogs. Here's dinner.
And I was like,
that's awesome.
Like, this thing's freaking awesome.
That's awesome.
That's so
cool. Real quick though, JP Harrell. Sorry if I pronounced the last name wrong. He wants to know what is light line when referring to fishing the Nessie. Okay,
so light line, you can throw it on straight braid. And what I like to throw it on 8-pound fire line. 6-pound is also good. 6-pound fire line is not 6 pounds. 6-pound fire line is like 20. It's really, really strong stuff. 8's a little better. It can just handle, you know, a little bit more damage and still maintain its strength. So yeah, I throw 8 a lot. And so anyways, the 8 is equal to, I don't know, you might know, Bailey, what's it equal to in diameter? Like 2-pound fluorocarbon, you know?
Oh, braid? So, yeah,
the 8 fire line. Yeah. And so basically what happens is when you put a bait on something that's that thin and that pliable, it really allows the bait to swim freely. It gives the bait its true action that it should have, versus putting it on 20-pound fluorocarbon or something like that. And so you're going to get more bites than the guy who's throwing it on 20-pound fluorocarbon. And you're probably going to get more hookups too, because they're going to swallow it. They're not going to see the line, you know, that last second before they go to eat it. They're not going to say, whoa, what was that line? Or, you know, the 20-pound fluoro. They're just going to eat it. And so it's down their throat. And, you know, using it on that light fire line makes a big difference. You can add a leader if you'd like. I usually just throw a straight braid. I like that. I like that full contact of the braid. You know, it's good stuff.
You're throwing 8-pound straight braid on the 9-inch Nessie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, you're nuts. That's freaking crazy. That's super cool.
Now, like, what's the rod and reel like? Because obviously you're throwing it on casting gear. So, like, what is your full setup now that we know what the 8-pound test you're using is?
If you throw it on a 760 spinning, you can just send it.
You're throwing that 9-inch Nessie on a 7.6 spinning rod?
Well, I ended up switching to the 7. It was a little bit it made more sense, But I started
a little cumbersome throwing it on a spinning rod.
Well, when you throw it on the big one, it's like a lob. It's like this really slow cast. It's like you got to be slow and like lob it out there. And,
yeah, you're like shark fishing with big cut bait. That's basically what it sounds like.
It really is what it felt like. But man, the water was so clear. I'm just like, what do I do? I got to throw a light line. And yeah, I mean, just try it. Go. If you're someone listening, take a bait, put it on 20, see how it swims. Put it on braid. Put it on 10 8-pound braid, something. See how it swims, and you'll notice a difference. And then give each. Put it on 20 and fish for an hour, and put it on 8 or 10 and fish for an hour, and see how many bites you get. And that's really how you learn and gain confidence and stuff.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Good grief. You gotta try that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I try really crazy stuff all the time.
I see that.
And if it works, it works.
Yeah. And so, I fish for bass with 6-pound fire line in Florida, like bed fishing and stuff. I'll throw straight 6. And I'll catch 8s and 9s, 6, 7, 8, 9-pounders off beds all the time on straight braid. And that stuff is so strong. Like you can really pull them through anything. And you would think, oh, it's 6. There's no way, but it's not. It's 6 is like 15 or something. I don't know. It's incredibly strong. Yeah.
This club that I used to fish, there was a guy that literally was a wacky Senko or a Texas rig Senko guy. And he always used like 6-pound and 8-pound braids straight to the hook. And he would literally catch them. Just as good as the guy throwing fluorocarbon. And it's the same deal as you're talking about, like shadow lines. The guy was like a master with using shadows to his advantage and boat positioning and putting the bait where other people wouldn't based on shadows, and he would just catch him.
Yeah. And that's exactly like that's part really the true key to fishing is understanding, like you're talking about shadow lines. That's where you'll have a guy who goes out, say he's like, hey, I'm throwing a baby bass, Berkeley General, and he caught 25 pounds today, but he doesn't say, oh, you gotta fish the shadow line. He's not giving that tidbit of information. And then people go throw it, and they catch fish and stuff, but they're like, man, I'm not catching 25 pounds. This guy's got a trick. He knows exactly how to fish the thing, and that's the true key to fishing is finding that trick that works for you, for each individual angler. We all have our own tricks and we all can, fish them differently and stuff, but you find what works for you. And that's when you'll start to unlock those doors that will send you into another, area of fishing.
Yeah. On the topic that we're talking about with this time of year being colder water, wintertime, shallow, especially, don't be afraid to throw these big baits still.
Oh,
yeah.
Kind
of seem like, you should downsize, lighter lines, slow down, but don't be afraid to do the complete polar opposite because it will pay off.
Or you can do both. You can throw a light line with a big bait on a spinning rod and so, just have a time.
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned a lot through fishing in my lifetime is I don't follow any stereotypes. I don't follow any of that, not even to the slightest. Maybe a certain thing here or there, but if someone says it's winter and you got to throw small baits, that is not true at all. Like you do whatever you feel like doing, and you'll learn yourself. If you want to throw big baits and you go fish them all day in the middle of winter and you don't get a bite, okay, you got a clue. Maybe it's not right. But you would be surprised at how many times I do exactly what you're not supposed to do, and I catch the crap out of them. All my life, people I'll show up to a tournament, and guys will be messing with me at the ramp. They're like, "Oh, you ain't gonna catch them shallow here. You better be deep." Next thing you know, I'm top 5 in it, in a foot of water,
and you're just like hanging in front of like,
yeah, literally like my life story. Go north and people are like, ain't gonna get them here. No, man. I
watch me.
Yeah, we'll see. If they're up there, I'll find them. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You're seeing on, I guess, social media or anything like that when the guys that are like fishing bigger glide baits, they do that crazy fast figure 8 by the boat.
Yeah, for like mostly for muskie, right?
Well, so you can do it for muskie. It works for bass. Like that's look it up. Yeah. Look it up too.
Yeah, Paul Nick did it a couple years ago on live.
Yeah, I mean his on Mississippi, he was walking his mag draft back towards the back of the boat. But like there's a legitimate technique to it where like you get them, and it's the same thing as a muskie figure 8. But they do like the long, drawn out, where it's like this is like within a 3-foot radius, and you're just like chopping it really fast, and it's crazy to see how like it'll make them go berserk, especially when they're right at the boat like that. And I've seen clips of it, and I'm like, man, those are like unpressured fish or whatever. And I've been throwing a glide a bunch around New York, and man, I decided to try it one of the times. Dude, it works, and it works like often. It's the only hard part is getting them in the boat because they hit it, and it's hard for them to fully get the hook. But I've had it happen in a tournament this year. I was throwing a glide, and they have a bunch of followers, so I said, screw it, and I was just chopping it back and forth. Dude, a freaking 3.5 pound smallmouth comes up, eats it, and it's just in one motion, just swing it in the boat. And I'm like, that did not just happen. Wow. Dude, you got to try. So, like in that situation, it made me think of it. Yeah. You said all the fish rose up after it, and they're just like staring at it.
Yeah,
try it one of those times. Just go crazy figure 8.
I want to go back to Lanier to learn more on that and stuff. But when you're doing the figure 8, your rod tip has to be in the water, right? You put it in to make more commotion. Or am I
don't think I'm the best person to speculate on that. I think there's probably times where it helps because it's extra like surface commotion or something. But honestly, I just took my rod and went freaking nuts in a figure 8 with the glide bait, and it worked.
Wow. So I watched this YouTube guy, and I can't think of his name. He's an Asian guy, bass fishes, and all he throws is guide blades, docks, whatever, structure. And when a fish follows, he puts his rod in the water, like a foot or so, and he's figure 8 like crazy, like splashing water. Like you think, there's no way something's going to eat this. And he catches them all the time. And just like you said, like he's got, a foot of line out beyond the tip of his rod, and the fish eats it, and he sets the hook and just flips them in right away. And I'm like, my gosh, like
that sounds like a broken rod tip to me.
Yeah.
Like all that water pressure and then lifting them with only an inch of line out, like ooh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, but it's worth it, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I'll give them that.
Yeah, to go from it's a tip like that can change your day to where you come in at the tournament and you're like, man, I had 10 5-pounders follow me to the boat versus I got 25 pounds. All figure 8 them at the trolling motor. That's the type of stuff that just changes everything.
I think if you told people that you caught 25 pounds figure 8ing bass at the boat, they would probably put it on the trailer and not come back the next day. They'd say, screw you, Keith.
Yeah, we're done. Everyone quits.
It certainly can happen, though.
Yeah. I'm going to try it, though. Just for you guys.
Yeah, just for us. When we get you back on the show coming up, whenever we get you back on here later this winter and spring, you better have done it already. Otherwise, we're not getting you on.
I'll do it for sure. I mean, I'm not being in Florida. I don't throw swim baits and stuff a ton. Although I hear guys really catch them on it. But maybe I'll go out to Toho and chuck the old Nessie out and see what I can call up.
Hey, it's worth a shot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, dude, we're gonna start wrapping some stuff up here. Unless Andy's got something else for you, I got one last question. But Andy, you got something for Keith?
Go ahead and hit him. You're good.
So there's been a question been asked in different perspectives of like the greatest of all time, things like that. Who's the Mount Rushmore of bass fishing? I'm curious from your standpoint because you're thrown in the bucket of some of the best, dirt shallow water guys consistently year round. From your perspective, your point of view, who is on the Mount Rushmore, say 3 or 4 guys that are like the all-time greats when it comes to specifically just shallow water fishing?
Well, I mean, certainly John Cox. you know,
Yeah.
he really is. As far as he's really the best I've ever seen, and I really mean that. You know, I fish a long time, and I've never seen anyone as good as John. He's so good shallow, and I don't know how he does it. To this day, I don't know. It's some kind of, he fishes with some kind of freedom, and there's like, it's almost like no strings attached, and no, almost as if he can't make a wrong decision, you know. And it's something like a choice will pop in his head where he's like, man, you know, I gotta move, I gotta do this, and he'll just make it freely with no pressure. And that has been inspiring to me to see that. You know, geez, I mean, let's see who else as far as like true shallow water fishermen, because, and I mean, by shallow water to me is like 1 to 3, and shallow water to a lot of people could be like 10. That's not shallow, that's deep.
We're talking like dirt shallow, like
what's your shallow?
Yeah,
someone that I don't know super well. I mean, well, let's see. I mean, probably Greg Hackney. You know, I don't know Greg, but he's, from what I've seen, yeah, he's really good shallow.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else? Who else is really good shallow? That just fishes shallow. There's some guys who are good, but they're not strictly shallow. And then, oh man, my mind just went blank. Who's the guy that he's from Oklahoma, throws spinnerbait a ton? Jason Christie.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Yeah, he's a shallow water guy. He catches them. You know, he's really good.
I'm surprised there wasn't like a. Did you do top 3 or top 5, Bailey?
Well, I mean, Mount Rushmore is like a 4.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to throw, you can throw some honorable mention, even if they're guys that are a hybrid. You know, if you think that they deserve some rec for that, by all means, throw them out there.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Rose is pretty good. I was his co-angler twice, actually, back when I fished co-angler. He's a good shallow water fisherman, but he's known for offshore more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has from what I remember, but he's actually pretty good too. Yeah.
Anthony says you'll be disowned if you don't say Denny Brower.
Oh yeah, I mean Denny's a little before my time. You know, I fished one tournament against Denny. We were on the Ohio River, and I sat next to him in the lock. We were locking up. I think we were there in Paducah. It was, and yeah, I mean Denny's a great shallow water fisherman for sure. Biffle is too. Who else? Who am I missing? Let's see. I know.
I'd say like an ish you could throw up there. You could throw a Poche up there. I feel like it was an unfair question saying the Mount Rushmore, because that's like the best of all time, and that definitely takes some thinking through. But I don't know, Andy, what do you think? Are we missing somebody that's like glaring?
Shoot, like another guy that you might be able to throw up there that was a power fisherman shallow would be like a Rick Clunn with the square bills and spinner baits.
Yeah.
Good call. Like, Hank Parker.
Roland Martin even was a really good shallow water guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you could throw all those guys in there because not too many guys are fishing offshore. That's
right.
Like, yeah. Like if you think about KVD's career started on the bank probably too. Like
old red one.
Andy Morgan.
Morgan. Really how do we miss that one?
Actually, that would be one of my Rushmore is Andy Morgan. Andy Morgan is impressive shallow. That guy, and he continues to fish the way he fishes on the Bass Pro Tour and does very well. Just doing what he does, kind of similar to John. You know, another guy thinks Ott Defoe. Ott fishes really well. Yeah.
Another one. Like a Todd Faircloth. Like I remember when he was hot on the elites, like earlier on, it was all shallow. Like, yeah.
Todd was hot on the elites. He was hot for a while there. And yeah, he would catch them all shallow. And I mean, I swear he got like top 5 in every tournament he fished.
Frogging in a cutter worm was basically in like just a worm on a jig on a Texas rig. All the time. Just shallow worming.
Yeah. That's what I do.
Yeah. I think one too that outside of the Mount, you know, the Rushmore, conversation, but a guy that I think is in that, like your bucket of guys that like to just get up, fish shallow, fish docks, flip a jig all day. If it wasn't for forward facing sonar that could mesh him into, because I'd put him in a hybrid now, especially after last year winning AOI, but Kyle Welcher, I'd say he's one too that is really good shallow.
Yeah.
Shallow.
Yeah, Kyle Welcher, he's a very good fisherman, and he's really expanding and starting to learn, and branching out. Won AOI this year on the elites. So really is taking the level.
Yeah, the lanes. Oh, duh. Yeah, I feel like that was an unfair question for all of us.
I mean, like the lanes, right? Like they're great shallow, but they're also really good at flipping grass in like that 8 to 12 to 15 foot range. So it's like they're good from shallow to intermediate. And then Chris Lane won a smallmouth tournament on St. Clair. So like,
didn't he win on topwater?
No, he won drop shotting in Lake Huron. He ran out to Huron when everyone else went to Erie and stayed in St. Clair.
Dude, Huron place. I love Huron. I love Erie. I love St. Clair, but Huron is like, it's like you can find fish that have never been fished for out there. So, I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I like Huron, fished it quite a bit, like Saginaw Bay, love it. If you go to a boat ramp that is outside the vicinity of a major city on Lake Huron, you pull up to the ramp and people are like, what are those pole things on the back of your boat? I'm like, oh, they're power poles. And they're like, what are you fishing for? And I'm like, bass. And the response is the same every time. They say, bass. You fish for bass? And I'm like, yeah, bass, smallmouth. And they're like, you ain't fishing for walleye? And I'm like, no. And this is exactly where I need to be.
These fish are gonna be dumb.
And it's like that. I mean, from Alpena to what's that? Port? No, not Port Clinton. Out on the tip, out there past Saginaw Bay. I just forgot the name of it. Where the lighthouse is. It's like that. Like any boat ramp you go to, people are like, "Why are you fishing for bass?" And the bass are they're huge. It's unreal. It's I love the Great Lakes. I wish I could live up there, but it's frozen a few months out of the year, so.
I think that's why it's so good, though. I mean, people talk about that all the time. The fact that they can freeze and get that cold is why it's so good.
Yeah, and they're dead. They're not caught.
Yeah, I mean, it's so massive, so there's still populations. Like, I'd say, obviously, if you mix in a St. Clair, but you look at like a Erie and Lake Ontario, those certainly get I think, in my opinion, the most pressure from a fishing standpoint. And there's still populations of fish that have never seen a bait in their life.
Oh.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. It's definitely sections though. Like, I mean, Andy, you see this firsthand. Like, there's sections of, say, Erie that get pounded, but like once you get out of that, there's definitely parts of that lake.
There's like little mini biodome areas on Erie that get throttled, and as soon as you get outside of them and you find the smallmouth, they'll come up and eat it on the drop like 20 feet off the bottom.
Yeah.
These fish are so dumb. Like, I love those ones. And they'll be in the places that you never expect them to be. Like in the biodome that you normally fish, you're like, oh gosh, there's one on that boulder, one on that one. When there's like 6 or 7, but they're so tucked in as soon as they feel you. You go out there and you throw a cast and you see one, and all of a sudden there's like 40. And you're just like, good gosh. We're gonna have some fun.
I'm still amazed at that, how forward-facing sonar shows everything, and you see one fish, and you cast to it, and 40 appear, and I mean, instantly. And I'm like, what the hell? Where did they come from?
Yeah,
a lot,
They're good at hiding in the bottom and in the rocks, or sometimes it depends on the angle you're on. They could be stacked right next to each other, and the ping is just not reading them until your bait goes down, and they're like, ooh, and they separate.
Yeah.
That big bulb just became 8 little bulbs. Oh boy, we better leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. Well, Keith, man, season's coming up here around the corner. It's basically December, so you got about another month and a half or so before you're probably getting ready to rock, because you're fishing the invitationals again, right?
I'm going to fish the Bass Pro Tour and the MLF Invitational. So I'm going to do 2 tours next year, and the season kicks off on Toledo Bend. It starts January 30th. And so, I got actually about 2 months, maybe a little less.
Yeah, 2 on the dot, pretty much.
Yeah. And then I go from there straight to Sam Rayburn for the first MLF Invitational. So I'm still going to fish a traditional 5-fish limit invitational type tournament, and then I'm also going to fish the BPT with every fish count. So, we'll see how that goes. Get to compare my finishes. Hopefully, they're both up there, but we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Any off-season plans from we're talking about it. 2 months on the dot here. Anything coming up between then that the people should know about?
It's probably golfing.
Yeah, I've been golfing. I'm starting to get my swing back a little bit. I've been all pissed off because when I play, I can play pretty well, and I can really strike the ball. And we've been down. I haven't been fishing much for a month now, just local stuff here and there. So I started golfing, and I can't hit the ball. And I'm like shooting 86, 85, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I went to the range the other day for like 3 hours, and I finally started to get it, start striping it. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice. Feels good. Smoke a ball out there.
Who's I don't even know if there's chatter about it, but who's the best golfer from a pro tournament fishing standpoint? Is there anybody that's like the guy you got to beat on your day off when you get to go golf?
I really don't know, but just this year at ICAST, I found out that there's actually a ICAST golfing tournament.
What? And I didn't even know that either.
I didn't either. Just this year, there's tons of people in it. Tournament sponsors, and a lot of people golfed in it. And so next year, I actually, instead of the ICAST fishing tournament, I'm going to do the ICAST golfing tournament.
Of course.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. I'm yeah.
And then, oh gosh, that's funny.
Then we'll know who's truly the good golfers of the fishing community. Yeah.
There you go.
Actually, I hear Bobby's pretty good. Yeah, I talked to him once like a year ago, and somehow we started talking about golfing, and he's like, I can play, Keith. He's like, now I can really play. I'm like, well, let's play. And we haven't gotten together, but he says he can really hit it. So I want to find out.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anthony Guy says, I can see Mark Davis being the John Daly.
Yeah. God. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know. John Daly's pretty flexible. He's got a wild swing. He does a lot of cocaine too. So
it's the X factor, man.
Yeah. I don't know if Mark Davis will do that much coke, but
that's funny.
Maybe Coca-Cola. Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, buddy, it was good to get you back on here, catch up with you, talk some fishing and coming up for your first your rookie season on the BPT, man. Obviously we're always rooting for you, and hopefully we'll be seeing it here. Hopefully in what's March, 4 months, 3-4 months. Either probably at Red Crest, I would assume.
Yeah. Be looking forward to that, and Classic, and going to all the events and expos and stuff. And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out there and start catching them.
Awesome.
Heck yeah, buddy. Well, it's a pleasure as always, and we'll be talking to you real soon, bud.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime.
All right. Take care, Keith.
You too. See ya.
It's crazy the correlation of anglers from a golfing standpoint. I feel like a lot of guys do. You hear about it on like the days off, and I'm sure Keith's going to be taking full advantage of that this year. You hear about some of the groups of tour guys that get together and golf together, and it sounds like that's like a thing on the day off, or guys will do tackle and then they'll go out and play golf together in the afternoon or something like that. But like even Red Wine is in the chat here, said you should get into pickleball, and we're trying to get Justin Largent and I, Justin Largent, one of the hosts of Kayak Fishing Weekly, we're trying to get Cody Milton, who's one of, I'd put him in the top 5 of best kayak tournament anglers, and he's leaving fishing, even with his success rate from a tournament fishing standpoint, to go play professional pickleball. I didn't know that was a thing.
That's awesome.
Apparently, it's like some fast growing thing. You look on YouTube too; they're popping up everywhere.
Is pickleball an Olympic sport?
That's a great question. I don't know. If Redwine's still in the chat, if he can let us know, it'd be cool. But I have no idea. But nonetheless, it's cool to kind of see that crossover. It's a competitive standpoint, and always good to get Keith on here. We always learn some nuggets and get some goofiness out of Keith. That's why we love him. And hopefully you guys learned a few things here. We obviously wanted to talk a little bit more about some shallow water, cold water fishing this time of year. But there were definitely some good nuggets in there from Keith.
Absolutely.
What about you, Andy? Like, so one of our inland lakes, say right now, because we're probably in the mid to low 40 water temps as of right now, say on our inland lakes. What's your first move? Because one, I feel like you haven't been in the inland lakes in a while, so it'd be obviously going in completely fresh. What would be your first move?
Oh man, I would be looking for subtle breaks with rock to mud transitions where they could possibly slide up and down into wintering holes. And I honestly would probably just fish I'd have 2 rods on my deck this time. Well, maybe 3. Probably like a lipless to yo-yo it across the bottom, or a blade bait type deal. Like we're talking 4 to 12 foot, or I would drag a jig. Something low on the bottom. Ned rig will always get bit, but I like using casting gear a little bit too much. So a football jig, the open water or something like that by Beast Coast, or a queen peanut jig, or a real big mop one. So when you pause it, it just kind of flares out and sits. So small and big.
Yeah. I'd say if it wasn't one of the lakes that I have waypoints for or something like that, like deeper rock piles or whatever, so I can go. Usually you can hit there and know that there's going to be fish. I'm going what I've been doing the past month or so, and it's I've been getting away from the bigger lakes, hitting some of the smaller bodies of water we have here in central western New York, and just taking a jig and flipping every lay down that's on the lake. And it's honest, you can't go wrong with that. Just find the stuff that retains
anything
heat.
that holds heat.
Yeah, any remaining grass that might be left. Something interesting that I've been noticing throughout this fall as we're getting dropping water temps, as the leaves been falling, a lot of bass I've seen visually through my eyes are swimming in and out of leaf canopies. Like it almost makes a mat of leaves back in a pocket, and you'll see them swim under there. And I caught a couple that I'm gonna have a video dropping tomorrow night where I flip into the mat of leaves and I catch them, essentially punching leaves.
Flipping the trash, baby. That's just trash fishing. I love it. That's awesome.
Pretty much. I mean, it's the same thing, right? I mean, it's creating a canopy, radiating heat out of it. It's a blanket like you would with the cheese. Yeah. Obviously not as well, but it was something kind of interesting. But nonetheless, it's a difficult time of year for us in the north. If you're in the Midwest, you're probably done for the year. RIP. We'll see you in May, June. Sorry, fellas. But for here, we stay relatively open for now, as long as it doesn't stay 23 and blowing 45 miles
Good
an hour.
news, it's going to be 50 degrees on Thursday.
Oh my gosh. So the fish is going to suck.
So we're going to have, I think tomorrow's going to be mid 30s, and then we go on a warm front, mid to upper 20s at night, and then mid 40s to upper 40s every day for the next week and a half. Which, that's New York as a steelhead guide, I love this time of year when it does that, because the water starts to warm up and it makes fish move, and they really eat good, especially after a hard freeze like we're going through right now. It's my favorite time of year because the pressure goes way down and the bite gets really good usually. So
you're saying if you have openings, people should get in now? Yeah.
They should have gotten in a couple weeks ago, because I'm basically booked till Christmas. So
there you go. Heck yeah. So, I'm hoping to get out a couple more times before I have to basically just say, hey, no more, at least until trying to go to Florida this winter at some point. But
it's a shame. I've been almost too busy that I can't even get over to my boat to pull the rest of my gear out and my batteries for the winter. I just haven't had a chance to get over there to my buddy's house in the barn.
Busy's good though.
I need to do that soon.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, hopefully people have been out fishing. Tag us in your pictures and stuff on social media if you guys are catching them. If you're out, feel free to tease and talk crap to us because we're not out as often, especially this time of year when the weather's nuts. Red Wine, feel your pain, buddy. He says he misses smallmouth. I miss smallmouth too.
Hey,
hoping to get on the Erie one more time.
So you can come up to Buffalo if you have a boat still. Like when we get some warm, calm weather, the bite's popping off.
Yeah, come pick me up.
Yeah,
come kidnap me, Red Wine. Nonetheless, folks, appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in again to another show back from the holiday break. Coming up on Friday's episode, we're having Emil Wagner on the show. That's going to be a great episode. Hope to learn a bunch from him. And like we mentioned at the beginning, mark your calendars for December 20th because we're going to do our Christmas special. We'll have a quote unquote not so serious show, have a bunch of fun for a few hours, have some drinks, and ring in the holidays. But nonetheless, between then, we have some great shows coming up to learn a bunch from some anglers. And I think, being that it's the 28th right now, we have 2 days left in November. It's almost time to really start talking about what 2024 is going to look like for Serious Angler. And there's going to be some changes, but it's going to be changes for the better. And we're going to trial some of those things coming up here soon. But just know that there might be some where the live streams are always going to stay the same on Tuesday nights. But as we solidify those changes, we'll echo those out to you guys so you know what's coming. But all we can say is it's going to get better. And I appreciate you guys that are always coming in here show after show. Same names are much appreciated. You guys are part of the Serious Angler family, so appreciate you very much.
It's cool starting to see some new names in the chat, like on a weekly basis too, which is really cool. So
yeah, keep on coming. We're hoping to 2024 increase the amount of stuff that we can give back to you guys, whether giveaways and things like that or discounts that you can take advantage of. Hopefully take advantage of some of the Black Friday deals that we had with some of our show partners. And just know that if you still want to save, we still got discount codes to the majority of them as well. And they're in the show notes if you want to take advantage of those. But nonetheless, if you're listening to this, please give it a rating and review. Help us out big time, especially on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you are watching, of course, like, subscribe to the Serious Angler Network YouTube channel. But beyond that, Andy, you got anything else for the folks?
No, just be ready for a Lure Lab episode on Saturday morning because last week I forgot what day it was and didn't get one done. So, yeah.
We're human. It happens.
Yeah. I was like, oh, shoot, it's Friday night at 11 o'clock and I have a guide trip. There's no way I'm recording one now.
No.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Well, folks, all the links to the Serious Angler Network shows are down below. If you're a kayak angler and you haven't checked out our new show, Kayak Fishing Weekly, encourage you to do so. We had on Christine Fisher this past week, and we're getting on Russ Snyder's this week. So starting out pretty heavy with our guest list, and Justin's been doing a great job over there. New member of the Serious Angler crew. Implemented some unique segments to that as well. So it's good things coming and good things going for the Serious Angler Network. But appreciate y'all. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Friday.